Welcome back to HVAC Shop Talk. My name is Zack Psioda. I want to do a video today where we test out a multimeter. It's a multimeter that I purchased at Harbor Freight a few months ago. It looks familiar for you guys. It looks like the Redfish clamp meter, but it's not the Redfish clamp meter. It's a more basic meter, more than likely built by the same people. Ames or whoever builds the Ames meter probably built the same meter for Redfish and CPS and several others from what I've noticed. There's a lot of very similar meters out there. Guys look at these meters from Harbor Freight and they say, ugh, I don't want to buy that. It's a Harbor Freight meter. I wouldn't trust my life with that. And that's understandable because Harbor Freight's known for cheap tools. But does 1 + 1 = 2? Does that mean the Redfish isn't safe? Does that mean the CPS meter's not safe? Are all meters built like this not safe? And if we're saying all meters that are built in places like China and Taiwan aren't safe, doesn't that mean that all the mainstream meters aren't safe as well? One thing I wanted to do today, I'm no longer in the field, so I can't take this thing to work for months and months at a time to test it, but I wanted to give it a little bit of torture testing and just see if it would last through some basic torture tests and come through on the other side able to test things like capacitors and voltage and amps and stuff like that. And I hope we can do this with several meters over the next few months, and hopefully they will survive. So we're going to do some mean stuff to this meter, so stay tuned right now while we head to the kitchen. What? Alexa, does Harbor Freight sell good multimeters?
Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a basic measurement right off the start. We have 121.6 voltage here at this outlet. This outlet has some protective stuff on the inside of it, so it's really hard to test it with these meter leads. So I just have one of my drop cords that is OSHA approved here to test it out. So 121.7.6. So we have a good voltage reading. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put this sucker in a deep freeze for 1 hour. Meaning, I'm going to put it in this freezer for 1 hour to see if that affects the measurements, how it performs afterwards, as far as how fast it moves. Because, you know, you put things in the freezer, guys, these electronics tend to slow down. So we're going to see how bad it is, how far off the testing is, because I've heard some things about meters being kind of skewed when you're trying to test them after they're very cold. My buddy Jason told me about that, so I'm going to test that a little bit right here. I'm going to take a few more baseline measurements before we actually stick it into the refrigerator, because I want a few baselines that we can compare to some post-refrigerated measurements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take this 9340 relay and test ohms on the coil. It is a 24 volt coil. We have a 10 microfarad run capacitor, 440 volt, and we have a 130 to 158 start capacitor. And we're going to just measure each one of those things, write it down on our pad here along with our 121 volts so we can compare. We are on capacitance, so let's start with the start capacitor. $152.4 takes 2 or 3 seconds to register. All right, let's do the 10 microfarad run capacitor. $9.82 microfarads. Last but not least, let's check the ohms on this 9340 relay. 14.7 ohms. And now we have a baseline for our measurements. So let's go ahead and stick this into the fridge. And away we go with the Hot Pockets and the Bagel Bites. Put you up top here next to the pretzels. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up there, leave it there for about an hour or so. Bye. The time is 1:04. It is now 2:03. It's been just about an hour exactly. So let's go take a look and see how our meter's doing in there. A little frosty. Frosty the meter. Oh, it's icy. Let's take it over there and do some measurements. We have our leads plugged in down here, and we have 119.9, so 120 volts. So really close. Very nice. Leads are kind of stiff. Let's move on to the next measurement. So after being frozen, we had 120 volts, which is probably acceptable since it's not that different. Put it on ohms. Let's look at our coil. The 14.9, 14.8, it's kind of changing a little bit. 14.8. So it didn't change at all. Very good. Let's look at our 10 microfarad run cap. .85, almost exactly the same again. Very good. And our start cap, which ranged from 130 to 158. 153.5. Exactly where we were before. Great. So it could tolerate being in the freezer. No effect to the measurements, which is good. Just besides the leads being a little stiff because it was frozen. Did a good job. So let's move on to the next thing we can do to it. So here is my oven. We're going to turn on the keep warm feature. Turn it on 140 degrees. And that way we can simulate it being in a nice toasty attic. And we're going to leave it in the nice toasty attic for an hour. So our brownies are ready to put in. Go ahead and stick those in there. All right. And it's 207 over here. So we'll leave it till around 3 o'clock and take it out, see how it does. In the meantime, while we're waiting for the meter to cook, we got some presents, Christmas tree, an elf, and guess what? Got another Christmas tree right there. And looks like little baby, is he starting to move in there or not? Yep, there he goes. Let's go ahead and get him up from his nap. It is 2:58 now. It's been a little bit less than an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and take it out because I have to leave anyway to go pick up my son. And we're gonna do a little bit of testing and see how it does. What's up, Jack? You ready to see if science of HVAC is fun? No? Okay. Smells like a toasty meter. Give it a second to cool off just a little bit, then we'll start testing. Well, it smells. Doesn't smell good. The screen looks like it's a little bit messed up. Just a little bit. It's hard to tell. It's hard to see the numbers now. It's like part of the other numbers are showing. All right, let's take our measurement. AC volts. 121.9. We have the meter set on ohms, and it looks like the display like it's clearing up, almost like it was a little glitchy just to come out right away, but now it's a little bit better. Hard to tell. We'll keep looking at that. But maybe an issue with the display after being in the 140 degrees for an hour. All right, ohms on this coil. 15.2, 15.1, 40 goes down a little bit by a little bit. 14.6, 14.6, which is right in line. So measurement's okay. Got 121 volts up at the wall outlet. Let's look at the 10 microfarad run cap. We have 9.77, 9.77, so not too far away from where we were, just a little bit lower than before. Just a fraction of a percent there. And we've been measuring 153 on this start cap. We'll see what we got now. 153.3, 152.7. It's coming back up again. So right at 153 again. So all the measurements are good. No issues there. Let's take a closer look at the display and see if maybe it's just in my head. Looking here, it looks fine through here now. Right when it just came out of the oven, might have been a little bit glitchy. So we'll just note that and keep looking for issues like that as we go through the testing. So it looks like it's raining outside. Oops, left my meter in the rain. Let's see how it does until I get back. All right, well, I left and came back again. It's been drizzling the whole time. Meter's wet. Not a deluge. Got some ants on it too. Torture testing is that for a reason, guys. All right, let's take it back inside. Let's see how she does. Still come on? Yeah, like a boss. We'll let it dry out a little bit first. The leads are in the extension cord right here, and we have 120 volts. Even after being in the rain, baked, frozen, and thrown around in the yard, it's still going strong. So a thumbs up in the torture test so far to the Ames meter. Let's test capacitance on our run capacitor now. 1, 2, 3. Takes about 3 seconds there. 9.81. So that hasn't changed at all. 9.81. We have our start capacitor. Since we have it set on capacitance, we'll go ahead and check those first. Our start capacitor is reading 153. So that's pretty consistent as well. And then we have ohms on the 9340 relay coil. 15 even, 14.9. So 14.8. 14.8. Right in line with everything else. So everything has been perfectly in line. So it survived the torture test. Some blemishes here. Some blemishes from me throwing it around. Nothing loose. Nothing loose on the inside. So I think it's been pretty tough, actually. I'm impressed, to say the least, with this. Haven't tested the amp clamp. Might climb up and do that at a different date with the air conditioner, because I don't have any of those little devices that come with the Redfish where you can plug it into the wall and test amperage in a 120 volt circuit. I'll get one of those and make sure I have one of those. Until then, we'll probably skip that until next time. The clamp's secure. There's a little bit of play on the clamp, but I think it was always that way. You can see. The body's tough. I like it.